The Epstein files, they're becoming more and more available for you and for me to dive into to find information. And today we're looking into some insane demands that Jeffrey Epstein had from the people on his contact list. Some of the things you're about to see that he was demanding are going to be disturbing. They're going to be things that maybe you're going to remember and be thinking about throughout the night. So let's dive into all the twisted thoughts, ideas, and messages sent from Jeffrey Epstein and his network. Thank you guys for subscribing. Now let's dive in.
I want you to learn how to cook eggs. Scrambled, poached, over easy, shrimp, broiled, baked, boiled, and sauces for it. I want you to learn how to run a house. No more. That's just one of the many rules Jeffrey Epstein allegedly gave his victims. And starting with this email, we kept digging to find out just how far his control really went.
A master manipulator.
Master manipulator?
A master manipulator.
In this video, we're going to expose Epstein's love life and the rules he used to maintain control over his victims.
No, of course, I wasn't trafficked.
It was like invisible chains, is a good way of putting it.
It's how these operations actually run. You don't just abuse people, you turn some of them into part of the machine.
In hopes that identifying these dark patterns will prevent other young women and girls from falling into the same traps.
At any point, did he ask you to remove your clothes?
Yes. Jeffrey Epstein had a way of entangling himself in the lives of young women and girls, and it wasn't by presenting himself as some sort of supervillain.
Yeah, actually, when we think about Epstein in the past, he put himself in a position to actually provide for his victims. He would promise them that they would be able to do and fulfill their dreams. And a lot of times he actually was able to make that happen for them because he was in the network. He knew all the people. But to get to that position, you had to endure tons of terrible things that came along with Epstein and all of his friends. And that was the price to pay to see your dreams come true. So you have to ask, actually, are your dreams coming true?
No. According to survivors,
He was very charismatic. He could be very charming.
so charming that many victims didn't seem to realize they were victims at all. Instead, as we dug through the files, we found evidence of women and possibly girls seeking Jeffrey's approval, fighting for his attention and telling him they loved him. The way Jeffrey secured this devotion came down to 6 predatory rules he imposed on his victims that allowed him to take control of them. Let's start with the first rule the women and girls in Jeffrey's life had to learn to accept. Nothing is free. When it came to courting his victims, Jeffrey liked to play a deceptive role, the father figure. And like any good parent, this meant taking a special interest in their lives. This included asking them about school, offering them food after class, even supporting their education. For example, our team stumbled upon this message from 2013 in which Jeffrey offered to go to Juilliard's music store to purchase school books for 2 students whose identities have been redacted. In this email, Jeffrey made it seem like this wasn't a favor.
Yeah, he's making these girls believe that he actually cares about them. And maybe in some weird, twisted way, he actually does care about them, but not enough to treat them properly.
But something he enjoyed doing, writing, "I like buying you school books." Sometimes Jeffrey would even dangle the opportunity of financing young women's schooling.
He said that he could get me into the Fashion Institute of Technology, and that he knew that he could get me straight in, he would pay for my schooling.
You know, just so they felt extra indebted to him.
Well, he selected the school. Like, he really knew, like, how to, like, begin controlling me.
To be clear, Jeffrey was not nurturing to these girls out of the goodness of his heart. In fact, this fatherly generosity is known as a predatory tactic.
They might do favors, they might do very charitable things for the children, for the parents, but their aim is not to help.
And the girls in Jeffrey's life would soon learn his mentorship came with conditions.
Yeah, his charity, his kindness, his trying to provide for these girls was just so he could gain that control over them. Because even if they were unhappy with what was going on behind closed doors, if they really wanted those dreams to come true, they couldn't leave. He had them stuck and trapped because if they would left, they would have gone back to their difficult lives that were leading them in no direction that they wanted to go in. So it was really difficult for a lot of these victims to actually make that decision to go because they didn't want to give up on their dreams.
Which brings us to the second rule Jeffrey had the girls follow: conform. Jeffrey had very specific requirements when it came to the life skills and looks the young women in his life needed, and that meant they constantly had to adapt to fit his ideals. Despite what Ghislaine Maxwell claimed in this footage from the Epstein files,
I didn't give massages.
massages were clearly part of the deal. And for many victims, this is how the essay started, with a request that on its surface could be seen as strictly professional.
But many cases it turned into something far worse than that.
According to Jeffrey's accusers, the financier used massages as a way to corner them.
I was brought upstairs and Jeffrey came out in a white bath towel and he wasn't wearing anything else, just the white bath towel, and there was a massage table set up.
Almost like he was testing the waters to see what he could get away with before making his move.
And he flipped over and it became something completely different.
Forcing his prey to things they weren't comfortable with.
At any point, did he ask you to remove your clothes?
Yes. And often forcing himself upon them. The young women and girls in Jeffrey's life weren't just expected to participate, but to keep the ever-revolving door of victims turning.
All Jeffrey cared about was go find me more girls. His appetite was insatiable. He couldn't stop. He wanted new, fresh, young faces every single day.
And when the girls that he had would age out or they'd become too old for his liking, he would have them bring in more people. Even when they hadn't aged out, when they were one of his girls that he was actively not caring well for, we'll say, he would have them bringing in new girls and even giving them money for bringing new girls so that he was expanding his pool of girls that he could take advantage of. And this was how it turned into a machine. And not only Ghislaine Maxwell was bringing in girls, it was also the girls that were then bringing in more girls.
This email shows the financier had his assistant and named co-conspirator Leslie Groff schedule haircuts for the girls. It's an exchange that, if you didn't know any better, would look like a father helping his kids out. But given that Jeffrey had no known children, these girls were likely victims, and these haircuts were likely another means of control. On October 1st, 2009, Jeffrey emailed a potential victim whose identity had been redacted, listing his expectations of her. "I want you to learn how to cook eggs," he wrote. Scrambled, poached, over easy. But he didn't stop there. He also wanted this person to learn how to make shrimp, fresh fruit juices, set a table, present food, and run a house.
Wow.
"I want you to read one of the 100 great books every month. There's a readily available list. I want you to exercise 4 times per week."
It's like he's trying to turn this girl into someone that would be a perfect companion or partner for him. Someone that's cooks, someone that's well-read, someone that's physically fit. It's like he's trying to mold her into what he's looking for in a partner. Strange.
Every week. "I want you to type at 60 words a minute."
Weird.
Lastly, he added, "I want beautiful things only in the house. You cannot put anything in without letting me see it first." The recipient of this email was not enthused. In a reply with the subject line, "Very funny," she wrote, "What? Shrimp? Is that a joke? You know I feel sick just looking at it and smelling it in the room. It's very funny, but there's no way I could cook or even touch a dead shrimp. I have goosebumps just writing about touching it." On October 11th, Jeffrey replied that the shrimp was no longer a requirement. Underneath, he attached the same message, this time highlighting the 4 times per week, every week part, referring to exercise. See, Jeffrey was infamous for imposing workout routines and strict diets on the girls he surrounded himself with, all allegedly aimed at maintaining the physique Jeffrey preferred in his victims, prepubescent. In her deposition in 2017, accuser Sarah Ransom claimed that she and Jeffrey fought over her weight and that the financier threatened to not pay for her flight back to the US after she went on a trip home to South Africa if she didn't meet his goal. Another anonymous victim claimed that Jeffrey made her stand in her underwear and took pics to show her how fat she looked, and told her that if she wanted to be a model, she would have to shrink herself to Jeffrey's ideal.
So what they're saying here is that he wants them to be in a prepubescent form. And when we saw that last document, it said he wanted her to be around 114 pounds. Now, 114 pounds isn't prepubescent, but it is a very small woman. So it's actually quite strange. The amount of women and girls that he had cycling through his machine, that he would be demanding of certain ones to look a certain way. Like, he didn't want to get rid of them. He wanted to have them good enough to maintain their spot in his roster.
On the podcast, Broken Seeking Justice, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of Jeffrey's most prominent accusers who allegedly took her own life in 2025, claimed her and the other girls' diet consisted of organic food like shaved salmon and vegetables. It was never like carbs, she said. You can't just fill up. They wanted you to look a very specific way. According to Virginia, even if you were legally an adult, Jeffrey wanted his girls to look 14. And if they did start to look their age, Jeffrey was done with them.
You know, because it came to a point when I was, I'd say 16 and a half or 17. He didn't want me anymore. He was just like, you're too old.
Maybe it was this underlying threat of being cut out of Jeffrey's life that made this exchange suddenly become so tense. The redacted person responded to Jeffrey's message, claiming that by the time she got to PB, likely referring to Jeffrey's Palm Beach mansion, Jeffrey's plan for her had changed. You told me to forget about the cooking because you were on a diet and not to get involved in running the house because you wanted to have other people do it, she wrote, adding that it soon became clear that she was only there to serve one purpose: intimacy. I'm not sure why exercise is highlighted, she wrote. I do exercise 4 times a week, except when on my period. She also pointed out that she could type at 60 words per minute and hadn't brought anything ugly to the house since. However, seeing as Jeffrey had sent her to an intensive instrument school that occupied all of her time, adding another book to her reading list during those 2 weeks was simply not doable. I can do that when I leave, she wrote. Right now I have 5 instrument books and 5 instruction DVDs to watch before the test.
And something that's not being highlighted here is, look how she ends. I would really like for us to stop arguing. I love you. Wow.
5 instrument books and 5 instruction DVDs to watch before the test. Yes, this anonymous person on a strict diet and workout routine was a student at a music school. However, she didn't mention the program's name, leading our team to wonder, was this a university student? A high schooler? Someone even younger? After all, we know that Jeffrey was a donor to the Interlochen Center for Arts in Michigan, a pretentious boarding school and summer camp for teenagers with programs in theater, dance, visual arts, and yes, music. According to the files, Jeffrey and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, visited the school's camp to prey on young girls, potentially even finding their first victim there in the 1990s. Survivor Jenna Lisa Jones made it clear that environments like these were playgrounds for people like Jeffrey and Ghislaine.
They're just as vulnerable as anybody else, and when you're dealing and going in there and offering them, let's say, art scholarships, that it's very easy to get manipulated into something, and you don't know that it comes with ties.
But the anonymous person in this exchange didn't seem to see herself as a victim of Jeffrey's, but a girlfriend. Her email ended with a plea. I would really like for us to stop arguing. I love you. Jeffrey's response was less sentimental. I had my first full night's sleep. / have fun. Disturbingly, the redacted email then shot back, cute, and a first BJ too? As this video will prove, friendly and flirtatious emails between Jeffrey and possible victims weren't rare. Survivor Juliette Bryant described her continued correspondence with Jeffrey after being SA'd like this.
It was like invisible chains, is a good way of putting it.
Yes, Jeffrey had a way of blurring boundaries with his victims, which brings us to the third rule Jeffrey's victims had to face. They were now his property.
Yeah.
As Boris Nikolic, chief science advisor to Bill Gates, stated in an email discussing one of Jeffrey's girls, Jeffrey goes crazy when someone mistreats his girls/friends, so better be nice to her.
Now, I wonder if that's true, because when you think about the abuse that happened to a lot of these girls, many people did treat them quite poorly. Now, maybe Epstein would get upset by that, but it didn't stop it from actually happening.
In another email our team dug up from 2014, Jeffrey refused to let someone whose identity has been redacted attend a class taught by a male. "You need to get to work," Jeffrey wrote, "and focus on your life as opposed to these boys." The anonymous woman or girl appeared willing to follow his orders, responding, okay. In another file, which appears to show a victim's diary, an anonymous source spells it out for us, writing, "No one can prepare you for this I'm so effing lost. Jeffrey treats me like I'm special property." Statements like these seem to capture the sense of entitlement Jeffrey lived by, which one of Jeffrey's ex-girlfriends described in a 2019 interview with Vanity Fair as such. "I control everyone and everything. I collect people. I own people. I can damage people." But while Jeffrey could be territorial, he made it clear that he would not tolerate the same behavior from the women he dated. This brings us to Jeffrey's fourth rule. Only he had freedom. In an email from 2009, Jeffrey addressed one of his girlfriends. While her identity has been redacted, many believe this person was Nadia Morkovoya, a Slavic-born pilot who Jeffrey allegedly victimized as a teenager, with one survivor claiming Jeffrey brought Nadia from parents in Eastern Europe when she was 15. However, as she aged, it's believed that Nadia went from victim to accomplice, allegedly recruiting girls for Jeffrey and even taking part in the SA.
Taking part in the SA is something new. We haven't heard of victims becoming victimizers as well. We have heard of victims starting to bring in other girls to Epstein, though.
So no, this isn't a clean victim story, but it's not a cartoon villain either. It's an Epstein victim who later became an abuser, and the system just quietly looked away.
"I will not abandon our friendship, coupleship, or whatever you prefer to call it," Jeffrey wrote. "However, I think we should be honest with one another. It appears we want different things." According to Jeffrey, this came down to their conflicting lifestyles. "I cannot live with restrictions," he wrote. He needed freedom and fun, which in Jeffrey's world amounted to one thing: other girls. Yet some girls became reliant on Jeffrey's approval, and this need, paired with the responsibility to work as hard as they could to maintain their spot in Jeffrey's orbit.
It's strange because in the past I've stated that in some of the videos and in some of the pictures, the victims didn't look scared. I mean, obviously there are pictures where they did, but there was very many images where they look happy and joyful. And I'm wondering if some of them did feel at some points in time that they did have a relationship with Epstein and actually did have that feeling of care and maybe even love for him, and had times of joy, but also terrible times as well.
Created a toxic work environment. And so the girls monitored each other for slip-ups while constantly keeping score of who was Jeffrey's favorite that day. For example, in 2011, Jeffrey emailed someone that's believed to be Nadia asking about the status of her visa. Nadia's reply? Asking what was the status of another girl's dark energy. In another message, one girl seemingly refused a movie date with Jeffrey because another girl would be involved. Yes, things could get nasty between the girls, as messages like this would prove. Can you believe Jay thinks I'm her friend? She's so stupid. I don't want to tell her where I buy my jeans. I'm willing to tell Susanna where to get cellulite treatment because I like her. In 2013, Jeffrey emailed Karina Sholiak, his girlfriend up until the time of his death. "I love you. Your concern over women is unnecessary. It is causing much of the stress between us. The first day we became together, I told you please. There are always women around. If they will make you jealous or anxious, it will be a problem." Jeffrey mimicked her complaints about massages, topless women, and touching and ogling other girls before putting the blame on Karina, asking her why she didn't trust him. In another email, Jeffrey told Karina that in addition to reading about perfume, bread, food, and cats, she might want to read about jealousy. In 2010, Jeffrey emailed another girlfriend whose identity has been redacted, scolding them for their selfish, self-centered pettiness after they complained about having to socialize with another girl. And remember that email to the redacted user to learn how to run a house? Jeffrey also scolded her about behaving around other girls, writing, "No more being around JDSRV." But for someone who is so quick to call out jealousy, Jeffrey repeatedly egged on rivalry. This brings us to our fifth rule the women and girls in Jeffrey's life had to live by. They were always in competition.
Were they in competition because they feared that if they weren't Epstein's number one, they wouldn't get the rewards for being there with him? You know, like the schooling, the education, the promise of being a model or a professional in their field. I wonder if they felt like they had to be the best so they can get those rewards.
For example, at one point, Jeffrey emailed a girlfriend whose identity has been redacted, telling her to ask herself, did I make Jeffrey's day, either yesterday or today, more pleasant or less so? Did I make him prove he loves me by asking him to do things he detests doing? Am I afraid others will treat him better than I and he can't see their true colors? Am I afraid he's going to leave me for someone else that treats him the way he asked to be treated? Yes, these were the questions Jeffrey was forcing into his girlfriend's head, which made her response no surprise. How can I not be insecure in this unusual relationship if you don't do something to show me I don't need to be, she wrote. Lately, I just watched you continue with the kind words and sweet gestures towards these girls with a cold shoulder towards me. I need you to keep letting me and these girls see the differences and respect the boundaries between our relationship and yours. However, in his follow-up, Jeffrey continued to fuel the girlfriend's insecurities, writing, you walk in the kitchen eating, not once asking if I would like a bite, like something or in fact paying attention to anything but what you are doing. You have yet to do one factual thought I have asked you to do more than 5 times. According to Jeffrey, all she did was complain about other girls, adding, like yesterday, a day I really looked forward to. The only negative was you and your attitude. Everyone else tried their hardest to make my first trip back pleasant. You only thought of yourself. Then there was the time Jeffrey tried to reassure a girlfriend that he only loved her, and one other girl. Spending habits were also clearly a point of comparison for Jeffrey, who wrote in an email seemingly to Nadia, you notify me that Jay is spending $200 on a juicer for me, but ignore wasted thousands on bullshit. You find no problem reminding me of any potential problem with anyone but you. Our team also dug up an email from January 4th, 2010, where someone whose identity has been redacted messaged Jeffrey laying out the events of a specific day. While the sender followed Jeffrey's orders to watch the massage DVD, likely referring to adult entertainment, Jeffrey seemingly became preoccupied with the unnamed woman or girl that she brought over. Like the others, the anonymous sender worked on elaborate egg dishes and offered to satisfy him intimately. Jeffrey, however, seemed distracted by his new toy. Jeffrey's preference was made crystal clear when he delivered insults like, F you, and you must be stupid, to the sender while playing with the newcomer multiple times. You know, like the way you would entertain a child, not an adult. And this wasn't the only email that alluded to one of Jeffrey's girlfriends being jealous of a child. On March 2nd, 2010, someone whose identity has been redacted emailed Jeffrey, I am fed up with these girls and want nothing to do with them at the moment. While the sender doesn't specify who these girls are, given how young many of Jeffrey's accusers are, it's possible they literally were girls. And from the way the sender described them, they sounded alarmingly young. In the email, she complained about not having the patience to deal with the girls.
It's strange. Not having the patience to deal with the girls definitely leads to believe that they're young. Children, even. It's strange, though, that Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriends that are writing these emails could see him engaging in anything out of the norm with young children and see it as in some form it's okay. Like, they're not upset that he's doing that. It seems like they're actually jealous of that versus saying, this man is sick and doing some crazy stuff and I need to get the heck out of here.
Talk to them, teach them to share a home with them, or pretend she enjoyed their company. Yet it seemed like Jeffrey had forced the sender to mother a role for these girls as he expected her to take them shopping and teach them to cook. But it was clear the sender felt no maternal instinct towards the girls. Instead, she appeared to see them as competition. She complained that Jeffrey let another girl make eggs for him. Even Jeffrey's resilience on his staff and someone named Sue, potentially referring to his assistant, Sue Hamblin, fueled jealousy. Regarding Sue, the sender wrote, it's a bit amusing that the girl you described is more helpful because she can make you a breakfast at 30 years old, can't make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, tell the difference between mint and parsley, fry an egg, or set up a table. The sender expressed her frustration that Jeffrey complained about her constantly, yet saw Sue as helpful despite her being incapable of doing the simplest things. At the end of the message, the sender added, "To be clear, I don't dislike her at all. I think she's cute and funny, but about as helpful as a 6-year-old and just as clingy." Jeffrey's response made it clear he wasn't her ally. Typical. "I didn't ask how you felt about them. I asked for your help." Messages like this made it clear this toxic atmosphere wasn't random but purposely architected by Jeffrey, who pitted the girls against each other. And with Jeffrey always having final say, his relationship with his girls went beyond the parental interest or toxic romance. No, what these files expose is a dark dynamic between a master and his slaves. This brings us to rule number 6, complete submission. Jeffrey used his age, influence, and power to mold his victims into perfect slaves. This meant when he scheduled cooking classes for the girls with his private chef, Francis Derby, they obeyed dutifully. "For Jeffrey, I will learn how to cook meat," Karina Shuliak responded following an invitation. Yes, even Jeffrey's girlfriends seemed to know they weren't equals. On December 17, 2009, Jeffrey received an email. While the identity was redacted, this sender could be Nadia, given the use of the term coupleship, which was found in previous emails linked to the Slavic pilot. In the message, the power imbalance between the two is made immediately clear, with the girlfriend thanking Jeffrey for his guidance and patience and apologizing for how stubborn she could be. She even started to talk like a child, to the point where the email became almost nonsensical. With that in mind, I need you to understand the hot issues. I know you've said you have told me the same story for years. Responsibility, accountability, etc. The baby thing really upset my apple cart. If they were to move forward in their coupleship, the girlfriend suggested she spend every other weekend in New York for 3 to 4 days. "It would be easier for me not to have your friends in my face," she wrote, adding that this way Jeffrey would have private time. What she meant by private time was hard to say.
Probably alone time with the other girls.
However, given what we know about what Jeffrey did in his spare time, it likely wasn't PG. The girlfriend then added, "If there are others in the house, I will do my best to be open." The others is mysteriously unspecified. Was she talking about other men, other women, girls? Only one thing was made clear by the exchange. Jeffrey had all the power. On December 30th, 2009, Jeffrey received an email that, again, given the context clues, appeared to be from Nadia. The subject line contained one ominous word, catalyst. Had the girlfriend reached the breaking point? "If we try to put this relationship back together and I come to Florida, here is what I propose," she wrote. While this might sound like a woman about to take her power back in a relationship, think again. "I will do my best not to be negative or complain, especially regarding other girls. If I accidentally say something you find bothersome, I ask you to remind me." She even suggested a code word that Jeffrey could use to express this. Kavakash, she suggested, which was a funny Slavic expression for nagging.
It's crazy because you would think that she would be setting her terms so that she can go back and be with Jeffrey. If you want me back, Jeffrey, these are the terms that I need to be happy in this relationship and be able to return. But instead, she's saying things so that she'll do better, so that he can accept her back. That's how twisted these girls' minds had become because of all the manipulation.
She went on to pledge, "When you ask for something, I will do it right away or let you know if I can't. I will read one of the great books every 6 weeks. I will continue to exercise at least 3 times a week, probably more, except when I'm sick or on my period. I will continue to learn to cook as I know I need help in this department." She promised to make him breakfast however many times he wanted a week, and start by mastering eggs. "When we agree, I perfected that. I will learn to cook something else. Appetizers, vegetables, meat. You choose what you like. I really am sorry for making you unhappy and being a burden," she wrote. "I love to see you having fun, giggle, and have that look like you're up to something. I want to be a catalyst for that, not an obstacle. This will be difficult and I understand your reservations, but I'd like to make it work and I am willing to try my best." Jeffrey responded to the email that same day, thanking the sender for her constructive feedback. "I need time to myself," he explained. "I lived in jail for over a year with people around all the time. I cherished my private time." Then potentially alluding to the others that the girlfriend was so jealous of, Jeffrey added his alone time may include other you-know-whats. Jeffrey then went over his ideal schedule, which included someone whose identity had been redacted, or Jinky, serving him breakfast, not 5 days old, exercising with his trainers, then a facial or a massage, which, as we know with Epstein, often evolved into something more. Jeffrey then began to seemingly scold the sender, writing, "I do not want any restrictions on my activities. If so, this will not work. I'm embarrassed by what I have agreed to do in the past in an attempt to prove to you that you're special. Looking back makes me ill."
Wow.
This is a manipulation tactic, making the girlfriend feel like she was in the wrong and had to prove her worth to him. According to Jeffrey, the girlfriend did not contribute to his life in the ways he needed. There was no balance, he wrote. There was only what you wanted. In reality, the balance was almost always in Jeffrey's favor. But this didn't stop the financier from pretending he was the one being taken advantage of. In 2013, after reviewing messages from 7 and 8 years prior, Jeffrey's anger at a former flame was renewed. "I forgot that you used to sleep all day, that I had to push you to exercise, that you were told that there had to be consequences for you following what I thought was a bad path," he scolded. "It is embarrassing for me to read to see what I put up with." Despite this redacted person not wanting to be treated like a child, which made our team question how old she really was, Jeffrey claimed that she was spoiled and he must have really loved her to put up with so much. The ex-girlfriend responded, "Must have? It was less mean when you called me a..." Yet Jeffrey continued to criticize her in his reply, claiming that she acted like a spoiled child who thinks that the world owes them a living, sleeping all day, not helping, and not dancing.
Not dancing. Now, we know he did like to actually dance, but is this like inappropriate dancing?
What he meant by dancing isn't clear. However, refusing to help out around the house and sleeping all day made this potential victim sound like a moody teen, not a fully grown adult. The ex's replies also made it clear that she now saw their relationship as unhealthy, with Jeffrey using money to make her reliant on him. In one particularly disturbing message, the girlfriend wrote, "You made many unusual offers. You offered to buy my baby 6 months into our relationship, and 6 years later you offered to support my next boyfriend. Do you remember that? It's probably not in any emails either, and I understand nobody would believe it." When it comes to why Jeffrey would want to purchase a baby, well, it's a question that comes with many disturbing possibilities, given the financier's alleged history with trafficking young girls. Despite messages like this, many didn't see the power imbalance in their relationship with Jeffrey. For one example, our team found this chilling scrapbook in the Epstein files that starts with the sentence, "Once upon a time, there was a clueless little girl." The book then moves on to photos where Jeffrey appeared to be ogling the girl. But this wasn't an expose. It was a gift, seemingly created to commemorate the young woman or girl's anniversary with Jeffrey. There are pages dedicated to beautifying and taking care of Jeffrey with face masks, Botox, and cough syrup. "You're so sweet to me," she writes on one page. This is exactly the kind of loyalty Jeffrey's strict rules were designed to inspire. Through them, Jeffrey created an environment where he was everything to these women and girls, the provider.
Well, he selected the school. Like, he really knew, like, how to, like, begin controlling me.
The boyfriend.
You can see that it's very obvious that Nadia believes she was in love with Jeffrey.
The villain.
Do you think you're the devil himself?
This gave Jeffrey control that led to the victimization of countless women and girls. And while survivors may blame themselves,
if I wasn't afraid to come forward sooner, then maybe he wouldn't have done it to other girls.
It's impossible to win a game when one person is making all the rules.
So this has made it very clear. There was a lot of conversation going on that is quite strange in the files through that email communication. And it also lets us know that not only was Epstein someone that was horrible to so many people, but he was also a master manipulator. To dive deeper into the files, check out this video. I'll be sure to see you over there.